Hey guys, welcome back to An Unlikely Friendship, the podcast. This is going to be, I guess, our first real episode since the last one was like an introduction. I'm Katie again, and
And my name's Matthew again.
so I guess today we decided that we're going to sort of cover the topic of like love and relationships, not necessarily only romantic, but also just like relationships in general, because that's something that we've been talking about recently, especially since after my last breakup, which wasn't too long ago. And that's one thing that we are both currently just like confused about, I'd say.
Yeah, and I guess like you said, it's kind of one of the first topics that we talked about. So yeah, just to reiterate, obviously, Katie recently broke up. I'm in a 6.5 year relationship, and yeah, we're just gonna talk a little bit about kind of our experiences, and hopefully you guys can relate or give some sort of advice to us, and just yeah.
Yeah, if you guys ever want to reach out, actually, we'd love to hear from you. Anyone who's listening. It's very fun for us. We got one viewer last time. We
Yes.
were so excited.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess the first topic that we want to talk about is just kind of like, how do you know if you're clicking with someone?
I guess when we say like clicking with people, it's just something that me and Matt have talked about a bit over the last while, and we don't know if anyone else feels this way. So we'd love to hear from you. But yeah, we could just, I think, based on our conversations, we feel like some people we either like just sort of click with or we don't. Like with certain new people that I meet, I feel like it comes very easily and we just click and we sort of conversation comes naturally, whereas with other people I find it's just like very awkward, and it's not that we don't necessarily get along, right? It just for some reason, like it just I don't have a better way to put it than it just doesn't feel like we click, and it's just awkward and we don't know what to talk about, right?
I guess it's kind of like there's a lot of people that I meet, and like I know that they're really nice people and everything, but just for some reason, there's just no conversation that we talk about that feels like it lasts longer than just like, hey, how's it doing? How are you doing? And it's like, I'm good. And that's like the entire conversation is like I just have to keep thinking about like certain things to talk about and like, to kind of like try to carry the conversation. But I guess in this case we don't really have an answer for this question because we're both kind of confused about just how do you know when you click with someone or not.
Yeah, like I honestly don't understand it myself. It's just sort of something that I think I realize that I feel, and I don't know if it is that way for anyone else, but I just like sometimes, like you were saying, you have to really think about how to keep the conversation going, and it kind of feels like really forced, right? Like you really have to think, whereas with other people, you don't even have to think about it, but you can just sort of like talk about whatever, and it's just super easy. On like a broader note, though, me and Matt, I feel like I should mention that we also, during the last while, part of the conversation is that we just feel like no one really knows what they're doing, and like everyone's just sort of figuring it out as they go along, right? So, I mean, like every year, every day that passes by, I guess maybe we learn a little bit more, but no one really knows what they're doing. And oh, also, probably to preface this, we should say that me and Matt both realized that we're both kind of pessimistic.
Like I said, I like to call us realistic, not
Which I think,
pessimistic.
I think we are realistic, but also a little bit at least pessimistic.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of one of those things. I don't want to stray too much from our topic, but it's just kind of like I think as you just grow up, you just realize not that people are lying to you, but it's kind of like people aren't as good, at least in my opinion, like people aren't as good as like they seem. Like you can pretend to be like a really nice person on paper, but then you actually kind of like talk to them and you're kind of just like sugarcoating everything so that like you can get people to like you, but you just kind of it just feels really fake. And like I don't know, that's just I guess that's like pessimistic. Like I don't trust them because it just feels like they're just like not real.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I just feel like things are so much easier when you're a kid because there's so much. I mean, even now, I feel like I don't know anything, but there's obviously so much more that you don't know as a kid that you're not exposed to, like way less responsibility and stuff. And I guess at that point, it's like your parents are making your decisions for you. You know, you have to go to school and stuff, and you don't have to think too much or make huge decisions. And like, it just gets harder when you get older. So I honestly don't understand how people are optimists because I am really not. And I just,
Like, I think it comes and goes in waves. I think
yeah.
especially right now with through all like the coronavirus as well as just recently breaking up and also kind of hitting that quarter life crisis where you just finished school and now everything's changing so much that like you want to have something that's like stable, and I don't think anything really right now is stable, so it's kind of nerve-wracking, I guess, and it's easier to see the bad side than it is like, oh wow, like I'm at least I have a roof over my head or something, right? Like,
Even before coronavirus, though, like I would say that I probably was still like realistic pessimist. Like, would you not say that you were? Because I don't think that, even though coronavirus probably made it worse, I still think that that is how I am as a person.
yeah, I mean, I would say I've always been very realistic, but I would say like my pessimism came from like,
Me?
you definitely did not help. I'm gonna be honest. Like, super happy,
Well,
and Katie comes along out of nowhere, just being all miserable, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? Life is
okay,
pretty.
that's not even true though, because it's funny. Generally, people think of me as a happy person, which is weird
Yeah,
because I
I
don't
would say
know.
you're generally a happy person. I mean, before I actually started talking to you for real, I mean, it was pretty just like we just laugh a lot, right? And I mean, like, I think like I'm also a pretty happy person in general, but I think it's just, and like why I don't want to say like, oh, we're pessimistic is just because like I think it is just realistic that like, hey, like life isn't all like fun and games, right? You can't just laugh at everything and think that everything's okay, because there are people who are going to take advantage of you and everything, right? So it's almost to err on like caution. It's better to be like, okay, like what do they want? But we're also straying very far from our topic.
But
So I'm just
I
gonna
mean, I think
pull
it's
us
kind
back.
of okay. Okay.
I mean, like, let's at least move on to like, you wanted to talk about kind of connections and relationships and like deciding what or who matters. And I guess we can kind of relate that to what we've been talking about.
Okay, so I guess like sort of bringing it back to our episode topic. Sorry, you can see that that's how our conversations usually go. We get very sidetracked.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think it's part of our charm.
Yeah, just yell that out so that like, they can really realize. Yeah.
But I guess so to bring it back, I think something else that I realized is that everyone who's a part of your life, a lot of people just kind of come and go. You make connections with new people and they either stay in your life or they don't, right? And it's sort of like a mutual, I guess, decision. It's like there's two sides to everything, right? You both have to put in effort for something to work. And that's the same for friendships. It's kind of like for some people, they might prioritize some things over others. Like, I mean, I have a friend who right now I realize like we're in different, I'd say,
Notice how
places in
she
our
said
lives.
she has one friend because that's the only other friend she has.
That's not true. God, Matt always makes fun of me. But anyways, I realized that like we are, I'd say, in different places in our lives, right? Like she already started working. She's been working for a while, and I've still been in school. And I've definitely like I've worked full time for periods, and I realized like yeah, you do feel or like you are a lot busier than when you are just like in school. So I totally get that. And so, like, I do feel like we're in different places in our lives, but I think I also just realized that, like, different people have different priorities, and I think she definitely has sort of different priorities from me. Hers are pretty much like work and her significant other and her family, and she doesn't make nearly as much time for her friends, to be honest. And I have considered her my best friend for the last few years, and I do understand like there's different types of friendships as well. You can be friends and not necessarily like talk constantly, right?
Yeah.
And I do still consider her my best friend, and I totally understand that she's busy, but it just sort of made me realize that different people have different priorities. And for me, I feel like even if I was full-time working, I would want to make time for friends as well and keep those connections, like the ones that are important to me. And it was a little bit sad for me realizing sometimes though that these connections can be so fleeting. Like people do just come and go.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess to kind of go off of that, I did start talking to a friend from high school, and we were just kind of talking exactly the same about how it's kind of sad. Like we were super close in high school, like with like a huge group of people because saw each other every day, right? But as we kind of started university, everyone kind of moved away. You don't see each other as often, and all of a sudden it wasn't as easy to keep the friendship. It was someone had to make the effort to contact the other person, and I've been kind of going on this little kind of reconnection journey, I guess. Like I've been trying to message some people from high school that I haven't talked to in a long time, just to kind of like catch up and like see how everything's going with them. But that's honestly been pretty hard, I guess. Like I feel like certain people that I contacted were just kind of like, hey, like I don't know why you're contacting me, and it's like just wanted to check up, right? But like it's just kind of weird. Partially like I let that friendship fade, but at the same time, I'm kind of in that mood where it's like if the friendship really matters, like it wouldn't have faded. Like I'll say like the person I consider my best friend, right? We don't talk every day, we don't talk every week or anything, but at the end of the day, he's someone that I trust no matter what happens. Like even if we don't talk for like a year, I can call him and I'll be like, I need your help. Like, and I'm 90% sure he'll be there. Right. So it's like, I, I think that kind of friendship is very valuable in another sense where it's like, you don't have to, it's not like you don't have to put in the effort to keep the friend, but it's like, I already know he's going to be there. So it doesn't matter if we don't talk. It's just, but obviously it's kind of like, I don't really know what's going on in his life right now. So like I just know he's also super busy. Like how Katie's friend is super busy. Like my friend's also like working like crazy amounts of hours. And also we're in different stages of life because like I said, I'm still going in school right now, whereas he's been working for a while. So yeah.
Yeah, me and Matt are just behind everyone else.
We're just staying in school for as long as possible. But I mean, in a couple months, I'm sure Katie's gonna get a job and she's gonna forget all about us. And yeah,
I mean, I feel like I'll be busier, but I really think I personally just do value like friendships, and I would really just want to at least like once in a while. Like it might not
yeah,
be as often, but still I'd want to make the effort to check in. So I think it is kind of sad. Like at least I think that it's sad that you realize that it sort of is a choice for everyone whether or not they want to put in the effort to like keep someone around kind of thing, or keep them as a connection in their life.
yeah.
And like when you realize it, it's kind of sad because it's like anyone who's gone, I guess it's like either a one-sided or a mutual decision to like that, you don't want to stay connected.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's one of those things where it's just impossible to stay connected with everyone. It, like, no matter what, you're gonna meet new people, right? Like, and I guess it's not impossible, but it's very difficult to keep tabs on everyone because it's just if I'm spending an hour talking to Katie, I'm not gonna have an hour to talk to other people. So it's like you do have to kind of pick and choose, right? And I guess that's kind of like deciding who matters in your life. Like, who do I actually want to keep? And I guess that kind of sounds a bit bad, but I would say there are certain people that I was friends with back in high school that I just feel like it's over. Like
Like the one you
I
recently reconnected with.
yeah. I mean, I don't know if we'll cut this out, but yeah, it was just kind of like I kind of realized like, okay, this is probably why like we aren't friends anymore, just because it's just like we didn't click anymore. It was just, and that's totally fine too, right? Because as you grow up, you change, and
Hmm.
it's impossible to like. And I think it's a good thing that everyone changes like slightly, and yeah, it's just like sometimes you change to a point where you're just not compatible anymore, and like I think that's not exactly the end of the world, but obviously,
I mean, in some ways, I think at the point of life that we're at, I don't know. I just feel like right now, generally the ways that I'm changing are like making me a more knowledgeable or whatever person, and I'm growing in that way. I mean, there's definitely ways in which I've regressed and those are bad changes
Yeah.
because of quarantine, I'm gonna say.
Oh yeah,
But
just blame it all on quarantine.
but I do agree with Matt. Like I do have a friend that I connected with again not too long ago during quarantine. I haven't talked to him in like a year, but he was saying that like he tries his best to like keep all his like friendships equal and keep all his connections, but I do think that it's not possible, and I don't like agree with him because like any relationship that you actually want to nurture and invest in, like it takes time and effort, right? And there's only so much time, right? There's only 24 hours in a day. You and like obviously you need some time to sleep and like do your own thing. So realistically, you have to balance and decide how you want to divvy up your time, right? There's no way you can, like, do you really only know like five people? No, you're going to cross paths with so many people, and it's not possible for you to split up that time in any valuable way, like amongst all those people. Like, if you know 50 people, are you going to give like all of them 2 minutes per day? Like, that just doesn't make
I
sense.
guess
And
like
it's not
in
going
a
to.
weird way, like you don't have to give everyone 2 minutes a day, right? Like for certain people, like you talk to them maybe like once a month, and that could be enough to keep a at least some sort of relationship with them. Because I mean, like I'd say like that's one of the things I think both of us have talked about this before, where we're kind of bad at is like keeping friendships alive, I guess. Because like at least for me, like if I really, at least back then, like if I didn't see you, I wouldn't contact you. I think in a way, like if I did just every month or so check up on people that I felt were important to me, like maybe I could have lost less friends, if that makes sense.
You know, also though, I think it's partially my personality, but just like right now too, those connections, some of them that I've lost are from a long time ago. Obviously, a lot of the time you do just drift apart, right?
Yeah.
Like it comes and goes, right? Like right now during quarantine, I think a lot of people are finding that they want to like reconnect with people that they haven't talked to in a while. And sometimes I do feel like I want to do that, but then I wonder like, is it weird? Because it's just been so long and I feel like they'll be like, what the hell?
It's definitely weird. I'm gonna be honest. I'm just sending a message out of the blue, like, "Hey, I haven't talked to you in." I think the oldest one I talked to was, I think we haven't talked in 5 years. And yeah, I sent her a message, and it was like it was so awkward. I was kind of like, I kind of regret sending a message, especially because, and I don't even know what it was, because it was her birthday recently. So I was like, oh, you know what? I haven't talked to her in a long time. So I was like I was still like remembering my conversation with my friend talking about like, oh, reconnecting with people. I'm like, oh man, like this is perfect timing, right? But yeah, it was so awkward that I was kind of like, okay. So like now, like I still want to reconnect with a couple more people before I kind of stop and go back to my old ways. But I mean, like yeah, I think I'm choosing those people a little more like carefully, as in like people that I guess like I would want to talk to more, if that makes sense. Not just like, oh hey, just checking up, but more like, hey, like we were really good friends before, and like I just wouldn't mind like starting to talk to you a little more again, kind of thing. Like starting to actually build a relationship again.
I think it also though it depends, like the reaction, whether it's awkward or not, also depends on the other person, right?
Yeah.
Some people might think it's weird, but some people might also be like, oh, hey, like actually, yeah, we haven't talked in a long time. But the other thing is, I think this is also part of my personality. Sometimes I feel like people that I'm not too close with, I don't know obviously too much of their lives anymore, right? If you're not close anymore.
Mhm.
So I also like I hate feeling like I'm imposing on people too, especially like sometimes I do want to talk to certain people about things, but I just feel like they're too busy or something, and I don't
Yeah.
want to impose and take their time because they're too busy.
Yeah. So
But
why
I
are you
don't
wasting
know.
my time?
Hey, you already said that I'm your charity work,
Yeah.
so
No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I mean, like honestly, I feel like we've kind of drifted on our conversation yet again. Which once again, we were supposed to talk about love, but we kind of really focused that on friendships. But
I mean, we can bring it back to love because
yeah,
I mean, there are different types of connections, but
yeah,
they're all related.
yeah. I mean, I guess guess I can't argue with that.
Hey, I mean, I think we decided this is something we're not gonna get into because we realize well, basically, like, at what point do friendships like become more than just friendships? But yeah, I don't think we're really gonna talk about that
Yeah, I think that's
because we
just
don't
too
know.
difficult. I think we'd actually have to like at least think about that a little bit more, right? Because like, what's the difference between like friendship and a relationship? Like, obviously, off the top of my head, like, there's the physical difference, right? Like, you're not, yeah, but like, and I guess there has to be some sort of emotional difference too, right? I assume,
There is, but honestly, like when I'm thinking about it, I don't know what it is. All I know is that, like, with some people, I just don't feel like it's going to be
yeah,
more than a friendship. Whereas with other people, like, there's something, I don't know what it is, but you just feel a different way. I don't know.
that's called love. Yeah, yeah, I think that's a bit too difficult, but right, we can literally, I mean, the next
The next,
topic point that we have is
okay.
literally what is love. Okay, so yeah, so just if anyone's still listening by now, but pretty much like we have a little list of kind of like talking points that we want to go through for each episode. And literally the next topic point we had was what is love? So
Which is such a big question. It's probably one of those like ultimate questions that like no one really has the
yeah,
answer to. But like it's just like, yeah, this really is something that we have been thinking about lately.
yeah,
Obviously, like Matt gave a bit of background about, well, actually we did in episode 0, right? We're both in very different places right now,
yeah.
obviously, when it comes to our romantic lives. Like Matt's literally been in the like longest term relationship. And I am recently broken up. So we're both in very different places. But it's funny that we both are just sort of like not sure about things. We're just confused.
I guess it's like I don't want to say I'm too confused just because like I think that's unfair. Like being in a relationship for this long, like I guess I feel kind of bad because I'm still kind of confused as to what is love kind of thing. And like, oh man, it's just like a lot to think about sometimes. Where it's like,
I I think that that's fair. Like like it shouldn't be expected of you to know because, like I said, like no, none of us know, right? I don't think anyone does know.
yeah, I always kind of pin it to the point that I started dating my girlfriend in high school, right? And high school to now, I've definitely grown so much, like from grade 12 to now, like first year of my graduate program. So much has changed that like it's just I guess what I'm trying to say is like honestly 6 years is a long time, right? But like I think like because we started when we're so young that it's kind of like it's still very difficult to understand it, if that makes sense. Like I think if I was 24 and I dated some for 6 years, like for sure we're getting married. There's no way that I think you would go through that amount of time without getting
I
married, I
mean,
guess.
some people do, but also like it makes sense because I think at there's such a huge difference. That's a really big like transition stage of your life when you're going from like a teenager to like an adult
Yeah.
basically. I mean, I sure hope you changed from high school and grew. Like
Yeah.
I think it makes a lot of sense that during those years that you would change a lot, and it's pretty interesting because everyone's going to change. I mean, everyone should be changing from
Yeah.
those years. So, like, obviously, we have both been thinking about just love and relationships in general a lot. And, like, me, especially immediately after the breakup, I'd say, because that threw me for a loop. And I think at this point in my life, I just feel so lost about everything. And that made it worse. And then that was something that I did have. Like, I was in a relationship and then I wasn't. And then I didn't know what I wanted anymore. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And then I just started thinking about like love and relationships and stuff like that. And then I was talking to Matt about it. And like, I don't know, we talked a lot about it and we kind of just, I feel like we never really came to a conclusion.
I mean, it's impossible to come to a conclusion, right? Like I don't think there's a single definition. I mean, if anything, love is definitely just complicated. Like, even I'd say like being in such a like long-term relationship, definitely I'd say overall it's been like a great relationship. I don't think I would be in it if I didn't think it was good. But at the same time, there are certain times when it gets harder, right? I'd say definitely me moving to Mississauga and she staying in Vancouver, like this long term, like long distance, hasn't made it the easiest. So I don't really know exactly like what love is, but I think in terms of choosing a partner, I think it's very important that you and your partner can talk about things and like not just like just joking around, but like really like, hey, like this is bothering me, like when you do X, Y, and Z, like I don't actually appreciate it. And like those conversations can be really hard, right? Because it's like you're telling them like, oh hey, like I like they have a flaw, I guess, like you're pointing it out. But at the same time, I think in a responsible and kind of like mature relationship, you should be able to say like, obviously like within limits, right? You're not going to be like, oh, I hate it when you smile or something. I'll be like, okay, well, like stop dating
What
me then, right?
the
Yeah, but like yeah, like there's certain things, and like definitely sometimes when your flaws get pointed out, like your first reaction is obviously to be kind of like angry, right? Like, oh, like what do you mean, like that's who I am, and like you're just like kind of attacking me. But like ideally, it comes from a place of love. It's not like meaning any harm. It's just like yeah, but love is definitely hard at times.
I mean, like the other thing we talked about too was like this term that everyone hears everywhere, especially like it's perpetuated in Hollywood, right? The one. You
Yeah,
hear about the one all the time, and part of me, I don't think that I don't think either of us believes really that there is the one out there. Like when I think about it logically, it's like if there is just the one person out there, there's like I think nearly 8 billion people on the planet now. Like
seven point
how
six.
is it only I think that
7.6, I
from
think.
like 20 I
I
don't
could
think
Google.
that number's been updated in a while. But anyways, regardless, okay, 7.6, 8 billion, about the same. It's still like a
It's a lot of people,
ridiculously
and if
small,
there's only
yeah.
one person, you're never gonna find them. Okay?
Yeah, pretty much that's what I'm saying. Like,
But maybe
what the
there is the
hell?
one. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe there is literally one person that's absolutely perfect for you, but you're just never gonna meet him because it's like, what are the chances?
Statistically like impossible. Like if you really think about it, if there's just this one person and there's so many people on the planet, and realistically, there's no way you're gonna go on to like every single place in the planet and meet every person on the
Yeah,
planet. So it's impossible that you'd find that person. So I think like this is something that we talked about. And also just like, are you supposed to feel a certain way? Like, are you supposed to just know like this is the
yeah,
person that you want to be with, like for the rest of your life kind of thing? Or is it more so just about finding someone that you're pretty compatible with and like happy with, and at that point it's just about like commitment essentially, I think, which is what I think I've decided I feel is what it is or what I believe in.
yeah. I mean, I'll definitely agree with you. I think the latter. So there's no perfect one person for you, but kind of like everyone has their like pros and cons, right? It's like you just kind of find someone that like obviously has more pros, and like you can kind of like work through the rest of it and like commit as long as there's no crazy red flags like they're like burning your house down or something like. And I think because I think honestly a lot of the talk about the one is like Hollywood, right? Like you see those movies where so and so just meets the person, they just fell in love instantly, and like he's super romantic and she's like super like cute and everything, and like they just like work so well together, finish each other's sentences and everything like that. But I really don't think that that's realistic at all. I mean, maybe it is for like the honeymoon phase where everything just feels perfect because you're just in a new relationship and like you guys are figuring each other out. But I think as you have like a longer term relationship, it's impossible that, well, maybe it's not impossible, but it's just like there's definitely going to be times when it's harder and there's going to be definitely times when it's easier.
I mean, so I do think that it is definitely perpetuated by like Hollywood, and it does like it sells, right? But
Yeah.
sometimes I do wonder if there is just some truth to it, because it's not even necessarily just in Hollywood. Like I have gone on like Reddit through different like threads or whatever. I think immediately after the breakup, I don't know, I just felt so crappy, and that was something that I did where I didn't know anything and I just wanted to know if anyone really knew. So I think I did come across some Reddit threads I think that were sort of like I just want to hear like your guys' stories of like when you knew your significant other was the one. Like I think that was just the
Mhm.
topic question or whatever. And it was just like it was a pretty big thread, and it was really cute reading through them because some people like these are real people, right? It's not, I think for the
They
most
could
part they're not robots.
they could be real people, but I think you can romanticize your own life, right? You could say like, I knew they were the one because they took care of me when I was sick and yada yada yada. They're not gonna be like, I knew they were the one, but I mean, like we got into like 3 arguments about like so and like it's just like I feel like no one's gonna post a real story if they're trying to be wholesome, if that makes sense. If they're trying to make people go like, oh, that's so cute, they're not gonna tell you about the bad parts, right? And not I don't want to say like every relationship. I mean, no, actually I will say like I think every relationship definitely has its cons, right? Or like certain aspects where you just don't feel as happy, or not just not as happy, but just like there has to be some negatives. Like is I don't believe anyone's in a relationship where they're just like, you know what, this is 100%. Yeah, because it's like I don't believe that that exists. Like there has to be conflict, right? You can't agree on everything, and I don't think a healthy relationship you should agree on everything, because then it's like I don't know, it's like you're just the same person.
I mean, I feel like just because you, let's say there is such thing as the one and you're in a relationship with that person, I don't think that that means like it's a perfect relationship and that they don't argue. I don't know. For me, I just figured like based off of what I'm seeing, it seems to be that the one is like they just know they have this feeling about this one person where they just know that this is the person
Yeah.
that they want to spend the rest of their lives with. And like as an example in those Reddit threads, the people would give examples of like, oh, I knew she was the one when she did X thing, or because she had this characteristic or something like that. And I mean, that certainly doesn't mean that they have a perfect relationship. And of course, they can be making something up. Who really knows, right? It's the
Yeah.
internet. But it's just like, I guess, well, I don't think that I logically believe in the one.
Mhm.
I wonder sometimes if there is just some truth to it, just because it's such a widespread thing, you know, like so many people talk about it. And I do think that Hollywood obviously exaggerates and stuff.
Mhm.
But besides that, there are people who talk about it. I don't have any examples of that in my immediate community of
Yeah.
people, but
And I guess at the same time, like we are still relatively young, right? I've only been in one real relationship, and I guess like for you, there's like two, I'd say like real relationships.
yeah.
So it's like we haven't really experienced a lot. So maybe you just haven't met the one yet, right? Like, but I just don't think that they exist. But like,
Maybe can you guys tell that we're very like cynical?
no. I mean, realistically, I don't think anyone's listening by now. And I hope we at least, if we get 2 viewers this episode, that doubles our view counts.
To be honest, that kind of covers most of the rest of our points that we wanted to talk
Yeah.
about.
I mean, we still got a couple of minutes before we like have to end it. But we didn't really talk about different types of love. And I think that's true,
Is
right?
that
Like,
actually something that we talked about before, though?
I don't think we really have, but it's just kind of like, at least what I think about different types of love is kind of like familial love is definitely different from being in a relationship. I think it's one of those things I think I've heard before where English doesn't actually have that many words for love. I think it was like German or something has like many different words for different types of love. So like familial love, like brotherly love, and like those things are like different words. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely different types of love. I mean, I love my sister, but it's not like weird. If that makes sense. Like I love my mom and dad.
I think that out of all the different types of love, that romantic love for your partner is the most different out of all the other ones. The other ones sort of feel more close together. I don't know.
I guess I'd say like all familial love is kind of close together. It's almost obviously. I think I come from a very good family background in the sense that like my family doesn't fight. Like my mom and dad are together and everything. So to me, it does kind of feel like unconditional love, if that makes sense. Like I didn't choose my mom and dad, and they didn't choose me, but we have that family bond, so there's love there. Whereas for a relationship, right, there's like you really are choosing your partner, right? It's not there's nothing that really binds you guys together except your own personalities, like that you want to be with someone. So like that is definitely different. But I would say like obviously I wouldn't ever say I love my friends in the sense like I don't even really know what love for your friends really means, but in a way, like I guess we kind of briefly talked about this before, but kind of how like what's the difference between like a relationship with someone and kind of like a friendship with someone? In both cases, you're choosing them, right? Like I'm not talking to Katie because I'm forced to talk to her, right?
Are you sure?
Right? But it's like there is something different, obviously. I don't know, like it's just like different types of love is kind of weird.
Yeah. I mean, hey, actually, that sort of brings me to ask you a question. I feel like it is more common for girls to tell their friends that they love
Love
them or
them.
whatever than like
Yeah, I've
you
never
would
told anyone.
your
Yeah.
friends, right?
As like a joke, maybe I've probably told like some friends. I do joke around quite a bit, so I'm sure I've said it before. But I mean, it's not like I don't mean it, right? Like I like all my friends, right? Or else I wouldn't be friends with them. But I guess like it's just kind of our whole topic, like what is love? Like love is such like a, I think it's a pretty strong word, and like I like my friends a lot, but like do I love my friends?
I don't know. For me, I guess I think when it comes to that, I think for friends, I don't know if what I feel is love, but I think with friends, I throw that word around more easily than I do with the other types, I guess. Certainly in a romantic relationship, I generally don't say it unless I mean it. Like, I'm not gonna start and then, like, 1 week into the relationship, just because they said it, I'm not gonna say it back.
Yeah.
For me, I take it more seriously. Like, I wouldn't say it unless I meant it. And then, to be honest, for me, in terms of like familial love, I think part of it is growing up in an Asian household. It's kind of like a weird thing. I think we're both Asian, and we both grew up in households where you don't really say it to each
Yeah.
other too much.
I'd say like the most verbal love I've gotten is definitely from my sister. I especially like after, so she lived in dorm for a while, and I like yeah, when she come back, she would be like a lot more kind of like affectionate, which isn't a bad thing, right? But yeah, like definitely, I think I've probably heard like "I love you" a lot more from my sister, and I've also said it to my sister more than I've probably said out loud to my mom and dad, just because yeah, it's just weird. I never really hear from my mom and dad, but like I know they love me, right? I hope.
Like it, I do find it to be a weird thing. I think it's how we grew up, and so it's super weird to me. I never say it to my family. Like it is very weird. Out of everyone, I'd probably be most likely to say it like to my sister. But even then, we don't say it often. I
That's
think,
because your sister doesn't love you.
okay, I'm gonna ignore that. And I think it's weird because with your family, you kind of have to love each other, if that makes sense. But I don't necessarily feel like I know that I feel love for them. I don't
No,
know.
I mean
It's like a
it definitely makes
weird,
sense.
my family, I think, has probably more issues than Matthew's does. So I kind of have a hard time with my family, and I definitely find it super weird to express love to them. And I think I know that my parents do love me, but I hear it from my mom sometimes, but like I've never heard it from my dad. Like for sure. It's like really weird. I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, like I'm just trying to think back. Like, has my parent, like, have my parents ever like told me that they love me? I wouldn't remember one off the top of my head. Like, I don't remember.
Like I'm pretty sure I've never, maybe when I was a baby, but
Yeah,
any
same,
time
right? Like,
from
I'm
like the
sure.
time when I've like been conscious of things, like I don't think I've ever heard it.
But I guess it's one of those things where, like, I think actions speak louder than words, right? Like, you can tell someone you love them, but if you don't do anything for them, it's like, what does your love really mean, right? Like, if you just say, I love you all the time, but you don't kind of like show it, then it's like, what does it mean, right? Because like I'm sure like your parents always bring you fruit, right? Like even if
That
they don't
apparently
love
is an Asian thing where like
my
Asian
parents,
parents show love
they
that
used
way.
to bring me foods. I guess like I don't live at home anymore, but like they haven't done it in a long time, right? But it's like they still cook me dinner and stuff, and like little things like that where I'm like, okay, like I still feel loved, right? But like you don't have to say it, but like I know, and like I guess even now, like when I call back home and stuff, like they're always happy to see me, and I'm always happy to see them, and it's kind of like little things like that where it's like I know that I am loved, but like yeah, definitely like like not physically saying it, but actually like saying it out loud is a bit harder, I think. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I think that that's sort of like a thing that is rooted in Asian families. Like communication is basically non-existent, like real communication.
yeah, yeah, just kind of
Um,
sweep it under the rug.
yeah, pretty much. I think it's very interesting though when I compare personally, like familial love to romantic love, it's like a huge difference for me. And me personally, I feel like you are a product of your environment, right? And
Yeah,
stuff in terms of like my family, obviously we are not physically or verbally affectionate at all, pretty much. When it comes to like romantic relationships, I'm kind of the opposite, which is weird. I guess maybe it's because my family is like that I'm like that in a romantic relationship, but I don't know. It's very weird because it's just so different for me.
yeah. I mean, it doesn't not a bad thing, right? So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I guess that kind of wraps it up on our topic, which was what is love, but we kind of derailed a lot into kind of friendships and relationships in general.
I
But
hope you enjoyed it anyway. If you're still listening, if you are listening at all.
I swear, Katie, you gotta at least listen to it, okay?
Fine. If you edit it, I'll listen to it. Anyways,
Okay. All right.
I mean, that's the end of our episode, I think.
Tune in
If you
next week.
hopefully next week. Anyway, if you guys want to reach out, we'd be more than happy to hear from you. So please do. We honestly are so excited when we saw that one comment from the one guy who listened. But yeah, anyway, see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.